let's talk a little bit about how we consume water in the United States specifically. If we look at freshwater withdrawals in the United States, this is from 2010, you can see that there's primary two areas that we withdraw about more than 3/4 of our water. So those include thermoelectric power and irrigation. And then public supply is another 12%. The rest of these uses of water, while not insignificant, are much smaller. So we'll focus on the top 3 uses of water in the United States. So thermoelectric power might require a little bit of explanation. That's not the same thing as hydroelectric power from dams. With thermoelectric power, you're talking about water that's withdrawn and some of it's consumed and some of it can be returned. It's used for electricity generating power plants that are driven by heat. And so this would include any power plant where they burn coal, where you burn natural gas or oil, or even nuclear power plants. Any type of power where you're deriving steam so that you can power a generator, that's going to be considered to be thermoelectric power. And so this water then is used to go through this generator system, and then after that steam condenses, they cool it, and sometimes that can go back into a river, but it can cause what they call thermal pollution because the water is coming out of the river cooler than it goes back in, and that can harm fish and wildlife. So almost half of the water we use that we withdraw from freshwater sources in the United States is used in these electric power plants. And then about a third of our water is used in irrigation. And then the final 12%, the other major sources, public municipal water supplies. I like this graph, but it's going to require a little bit of explanation. So if we look at U.S. water use, each one of these charts is a different use of water, type of water use. And then on this graph, we have the states from left to right, and at the bottom axis, this x-axis, the states are going from west to east. So the left side of the graph are western states, and the right side of the graph are all the eastern states. And so if we look at the two main consumption ways that we consume water that's withdrawn from freshwater sources, irrigation and thermoelectric, you'll see that in the western states, so on the left axis, part of the axis, we're seeing water is used for irrigation, but in the eastern states, water is being withdrawn to use in these thermoelectric power plants. So the water withdrawals are different depending on where you live in the United States. Okay, similarly for livestock, we tend to see a little more in the Midwestern states, and then self-supplied industrials more in the kind of eastern Midwestern states. But take-home message here, irrigation, agriculture, most of the water is withdrawn in the western states where there's not as much rainfall, and then the eastern states, which have high population densities, where you're withdrawing water to use in thermoelectric power plants. About 3/4 or 75% of the water that's used in the United States is being used from surface water sources. So, you know, of this, a lot is going to irrigation, a lot is going to thermoelectric power plants, and then smaller amounts are going to public supply and industrial uses. So that mirrors how we use all water, but most of the water we use in the United States is coming from surface water, so rivers and lakes. Of the 12% of water we use for public supply, what do we do with it? So this is a nice pie chart showing how we consume the water that we withdraw and then gets pumped to our houses. About 1/4 of it just gets flushed down the toilet literally, so about 1/4 of it's used in the toilet. Another 20% is used for showering, and then another 19% comes out of your faucet, so brushing your teeth, washing dishes, all of those kind of things you do in the faucet. And then your clothes washer uses about 17%. This number is disturbing. 12% is lost to leaks. So if you have leaks, like your hose, for example, where it connects to the house, that water leaks. And then other. So if I had to guess of the other, a lot of it's used for landscaping. Alright, so for this set of lectures, there was a number of resources, and if you would like to check them out, the links are shown here. So the United Nations Environment Program provided a lot of the statistical data for global withdrawals and usage. And then this Grid Ardenal website, it's a Norwegian organization that works with the UN. They provided some of the nice charts and graphs that we looked at and maps. The Aquastat provided some more statistics and maps and charts. And then for our domestic part of the talks, the U.S. consumption was from the U.S. Geological Survey and the EPA WaterSense website.